Imagine waking up tomorrow and Australia's gone. Not invaded, not collapsed, just gone. What happens to the world? By 6 a.m., the first problem shows up. A lithium shipment that was supposed to arrive in Shanghai doesn't. It won't arrive tomorrow either, or ever. By noon, the second problem surfaces. Hospitals across Asia start running low on medical devices, the devices that keep people alive. By evening, the third problem hits. Food prices spike. Bakeries start doing the math on whether they'll have enough flour for a week. By the end of day one, the fourth problem emerges. Software engineers realize that the digital tools they use every day have stopped getting updates. No support, no fixes, no one to call. By day two, the world has figured it out. Australia didn't just disappear, it took the modern world with it. And there's no plan B. In this video, you'll see just how much of your daily life depends on a country which most people think is just kangaroos and beaches. 3 days after Australia disappears, a Tesla factory in Shanghai grinds to a halt. The assembly line that was supposed to produce 10,000 EVs this month just stops. Managers stare at their lithium supply numbers and realize something. The shipment that should have arrived yesterday won't arrive tomorrow either. It will never arrive. Within a week, the problem spreads. Battery manufacturers across Asia, Europe, and the United States open their warehouses to find shelves running dry weeks ahead of schedule. The giant batteries meant to stabilize power grids during extreme heat or cold, the ones keeping cities alive during climate crises, begin to falter. Then the news breaks. Australia supplied nearly half of the world's lithium. And it wasn't just the volume that mattered, it was purity. The Greenbushes mine alone was so productive that it outperformed entire countries. Pilgangoora wasn't far behind, and Australia had dozens more deposits in development. But here's what the world didn't realize. Companies don't just need lithium, they need consistent, high-purity lithium. The kind that lets them predict quality. The kind that lets them secure long-term contracts and plan production schedules 5 years into the future. Battery manufacturers built their entire operations around Australian supply. When that disappears, it isn't just supply that collapses. It's the entire predictive framework the global battery industry was built on. And here's the part most people will never hear about. China tried to buy far more of Australia's lithium sector than it ever managed to secure. Australia blocked several deals on national security grounds, including a major 2020 attempt involving AVZ Minerals. That decision, once criticized as overly defensive, now looks like the moment Australia prevented a global monopoly. With Australia gone, the world faces a double shock, a supply collapse and a sudden, uncomfortable dependence on whoever fills the vacuum. But the battery crisis is only the beginning. Your phone vibrates because of rare earth magnets. Remove them and it goes silent. An MRI sees inside a human body because of rare earth electromagnets. Take them away and it goes dark. A fighter jet maneuvers with precision because of rare earth electronics. A wind turbine spins because of rare earth generators. An EV motor accelerates because of rare earth motors. Then Australia disappears. Lynas Rare Earths, one of the few companies capable of refining these materials at scale outside China, vanishes overnight. Western nations that spent the last decade trying to diversify away from Chinese dependence suddenly find themselves facing a far worse problem. They've lost their backup plan entirely. Here's what policy analysts were supposed to prevent. The world relied too heavily on China for rare earths. Australia was the solution. Australia held more than 20% of the world's rare earth reserves. It was aggressively building the processing capability that could have rebalanced the entire global market. Now that solution is gone. This isn't just an economic disruption, it's a technological vulnerability, the kind that nations hate to admit exists, because admitting it means admitting how fragile the modern world actually is. But the crisis is spreading faster now, and the next impact affects people far more directly. 3 days after Australia disappears, the government of Indonesia realizes something. Its wheat shipment isn't late, it's never coming. Bakeries calculate their flour supply. They have enough for a week, maybe 8 days if they ration. Restaurants check their beef orders. Similar math. By week 2, the numbers get uncomfortable. Across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, the same realization spreads. These regions didn't just buy from Australia because it was cheap. They bought from Australia because it was reliable. During global shocks, during droughts that devastated other agricultural regions, Australia consistently delivered. With just 26 million people, it somehow managed to feed 8 times its population. It supplied nearly 10% of the world's wheat exports during certain seasons, was a top-tier beef and dairy exporter. But the world didn't realize how hard-won that output was. Australian farms survived some of the harshest drought cycles on Earth. And the reason they survived wasn't luck, it was engineered resilience. AI-driven irrigation that predicted soil moisture weeks in advance. Drone-based crop monitoring that caught disease before it spread. Livestock disease tracking software that prevented epidemics. Carbon-neutral grazing trials, solar-powered sensors in the outback, drought-resistant grain strains developed after decades of brutal climate challenges. When that innovation disappears, so does the global buffer it created. Food scarcity doesn't create headlines immediately. It shows up slowly. Rising prices, tense trade negotiations, countries competing for fewer shipments, importers outbidding each other. Eventually, it becomes a geopolitical problem. But while governments scramble to secure food, another crisis is unfolding quietly in hospitals across the world. A mother receives a letter about her son's cochlear implant surgery. The letter says, "We regret to inform you that the replacement kits are no longer available. Your procedure has been postponed indefinitely." 650,000 people worldwide have had their hearing restored by cochlear implants. Most of these devices came from Australia. Now the parts that keep them functioning have stopped flowing. Parents of children with hearing impairments begin calling hospitals, surgeons postpone procedures, speech therapy clinics face cancellations, children who were supposed to have their surgery next month won't have it next year. At the same time, another crisis unfolds in bedrooms across the world. Tens of millions of people use ResMed sleep apnea devices every night. They wake up, they breathe, their hearts don't race, they sleep. Untreated sleep apnea leads to strokes, heart attacks, chronic fatigue that cripples a person's ability to work, to live normally, to survive without constant risk. ResMed's supply chains halt. The devices start to run short. This crisis hits differently. It isn't about markets failing or supply chains breaking. It's about people losing quality of life. It's about safety. Because the medical technology they depended on originated in a nation that no longer exists. And now there's no one to maintain it, no one to support it, no one to care for it. But the disruption is spreading beyond hospitals now. It's moving into the digital world. Millions of people work in Jira every day. They have no idea it's Australian until the updates start. Designers open Canva and notice no new templates, no improvements, no rapid iterations that kept the platform fresh. Canva users grew accustomed to constant innovation. Sudden stagnation feels like the platform is dying. Atlassian tools, Jira, Trello, Confizz, freeze in place. No fixes, no growth, no response to customer requests. Small bugs that used to get resolved in days now linger indefinitely. Teams notice. They get frustrated. They start looking for alternatives. But alternatives take time to implement, and in that gap, productivity quietly erodes. Startups that relied on Australian infrastructure partners scramble for alternatives. Cloud systems that routed through Australian servers need to be rerouted. Entire workflows need to be rebuilt. The world discovers something uncomfortable. Australia wasn't a Silicon Valley competitor. It was a global contributor that created tools millions leaned on without realizing how much they depended on them. But here's what becomes clear as the disruption deepens. Every industry is connected. Every system talks to another system. Every shortage becomes another shortage. And the next chapter of the collapse shows exactly how. Japan's largest steel mill goes dark because its ore supply evaporates overnight. South Korea's shipbuilding industry, which exports $40 billion, 0 cents in ships annually, suddenly can't source materials fast enough. Construction projects from Singapore to Seoul freeze mid-foundation. Entire infrastructure timelines collapse. Australia supplies around 35–40% of the world's iron ore exports. Remove that, and steel becomes more expensive everywhere. Construction costs rise, shipbuilding slows, infrastructure projects stall. At the same time, the Indo-Pacific shipping network loses a major stabilizing anchor. Ports in Western Australia handled massive volumes of trade, refueling, and transit. Their disappearance forces shipping companies to reshape routes that have been stable for decades. Longer routes mean higher costs mean higher consumer prices, and higher prices start to feed into global inflation fears, the kind that rattle governments. The crisis now touches every continent, and yet another silent shock is waiting in the background. Climate models that predict hurricane formation lose their southern hemisphere data inputs. Weather forecasts that kept people safe become noticeably less accurate. Meteorologists have to recalibrate entire prediction systems without critical data points. Australia ran one of the world's most advanced climate monitoring networks. It operated major radio telescopes used for astronomy and space tracking. It played a central role in deep ocean research. It supported Antarctic operations that the entire scientific world depended on for long-term climate data. Scientists working on long-term climate patterns realized something terrifying. They've just lost 30 years of continuous observation. That data can't be recreated. It can only be extended. And now, the extension is broken. Space agencies find gaps in orbital tracking. Weather forecasters face blind spots in the southern hemisphere. The subtle data that helped predict dangerous weather patterns, that warned of emerging climate shifts, that caught problems early, all of it is gone. This isn't a dramatic collapse. It's the kind scientists fear most. A subtle one. The kind that chips away at our ability to predict danger. The kind that slowly erodes our early warning systems until we're blindsided by something we should have seen coming. So if Australia vanishes, the world doesn't collapse instantly. But the cracks travel fast. Batteries go dead. Machines lose their magnets. Food supplies dry up. Hospitals can't help their patients. Digital tools freeze. Supply chains shatter. And our ability to predict future danger gets slowly erased. But here's what actually terrifies policymakers. We have no idea which other countries are quietly holding up our world in the same way. Which ones could disappear tomorrow, and what would break with them? Which invisible dependency are we ignoring right now? Let me know in the comments which country you think should be next.